Staff Sergeant Maya Chen adjusted her headset for the third time in as many minutes, trying to find a position where the foam padding didn't dig into her skull. The communications tent at Forward Operating Base Sentinel was a furnace, even at 600 hours. Outside, the desert sun was just beginning to paint the Afghan mountains in shades of amber and gold. But inside her canvas-walled domain, 36 screens flickered with data streams, radio frequencies, and tactical displays that never slept. She'd been at FOB Sentinel for 2 weeks now, and the routine was always the same. Infantry loaded up, rolled out, came back. Sometimes they brought stories. Sometimes they brought casualties. And always, they forgot about the woman in the tent who kept them connected to the world. "Make sure the comms girl keeps the line open," Captain Reeves' voice carried across the compound as Alpha Company prepped for another patrol. His tone was light, joking, but Maya caught the dismissiveness underneath. She wasn't one of them. Wasn't a door kicker, a trigger puller, a real soldier in their eyes. Just the comms girl. Maya's jaw tightened as she logged the patrol's departure time. 6:22 hours, 4 vehicles, 20 personnel, routine security sweep of Highway Silver. She'd done this 100 times. Monitor their progress. Relay their reports. Be the invisible link in the chain of command. But Maya Chen was anything but ordinary. She'd graduated top of her class from the Defense Language Institute, spoke fluent Pashto, Dari, Arabic, and Russian. She could identify radio signatures the way a sommelier identified wine, by region, by equipment type, by the unique electronic fingerprint each transmitter left behind. 3 years of training, countless hours studying enemy communication patterns, and an almost supernatural ability to find meaning in static. Her father, a decorated Vietnam veteran, had taught her that every role in the military mattered. "Wars aren't won by heroes alone," he'd said on her commissioning day. "They're won by the people who make sure heroes have what they need when they need it." She believed that most days. As the convoy rumbled out through the main gate, Maya began her scan of the local frequencies. Routine chatter from the local police checkpoint, a taxi dispatcher in the nearby village, the hum of civilian life punctuated by military transmissions. Then something else. Her hand froze over the keyboard. There, on a frequency that should have been empty, a burst transmission barely 2 seconds long. Her software flagged it and she rewound, isolated, analyzed. The encryption was sophisticated, not Taliban, not local militia. This was organized, professional. Maya's pulse quickened. She adjusted her filters, widening her search across the spectrum. There. Another burst, different frequency, same encryption signature, and another. They were coordinating, using frequency hopping to avoid detection. Classic counter-surveillance technique. She leaned forward, fingers flying across her keyboard, building a profile. 4 distinct transmitters, all using synchronized burst patterns. They were communicating, but carefully, professionally. The kind of care that suggested planning. The kind of planning that preceded an attack. For the next hour, Maya tracked them. She triangulated positions using signal strength and bearing data, plotted them on her tactical map. The pattern that emerged made her stomach drop. All 4 transmitters were positioned along Highway Silver, the exact route Alpha Company patrolled daily. The exact route they'd just taken. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her log book, documenting everything. Frequency ranges, timestamps, estimated positions. She cross-referenced with intelligence reports from the past week. Nothing. No warnings. No alerts about increased enemy activity in this sector. But Maya knew what she was hearing. This was the signature of something big, something coordinated, something deadly. She had to tell someone. Maya saved her analysis, printed the report, and headed for the Tactical Operations Center. Lieutenant Harris, the intelligence officer, was reviewing overnight reports, coffee in hand. "Lieutenant, I've got something you need to see." He barely looked up, What is it, Chen? Intercepted communications. Encrypted burst transmissions along Highway Silver. I think they're planning. Probably just chatter, Harris interrupted, waving dismissively. Militias talk all the time. Don't create problems where there aren't any. Sir, the pattern suggests. Chen, he finally looked at her and his expression was tired, patronizing. I appreciate your diligence, but we've got actual intelligence to process. If something develops, we'll handle it. You just keep the radios working, okay? Maya stood there, report in hand, words dying in her throat. She wanted to argue to make him understand, but she'd been here before. The new specialist, the outsider, the woman trying to prove she belonged. She returned to her tent, the morning heat already oppressive. Outside, the base continued its routine. Soldiers joking, mechanics working, life going on. And somewhere out there in the mountains and valleys of Afghanistan, an enemy was preparing, coordinating, waiting. Maya sat down at her console, put her headset back on and kept listening. They wouldn't hear her warnings, but she would keep watching, keep listening. Because when the moment came, and she knew it would come, she would be ready. Even if no one else was. For 48 hours, Maya Chen barely slept. The ghost frequencies haunted her. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard them, those brief, encrypted bursts dancing across the spectrum like whispers in a crowded room. Methodical, deliberate, professional. She'd created a spreadsheet tracking every transmission. Time, frequency, duration, estimated location. The pattern was undeniable. 5 distinct transmitter groups, all operating in perfect coordination. They used burst transmissions lasting less than 3 seconds, frequency-hopping algorithms that would confuse most signals intelligence operators, and timing intervals that suggested military-grade discipline. This wasn't random chatter. This was orchestrated. Maya cross-referenced the transmitter locations with known Taliban operating areas. Nothing matched. These positions were new, carefully chosen for overlapping fields of fire along the valley routes. She pulled up satellite imagery, marking each estimated position with a red pin on her digital map. Her blood ran cold. They formed a perfect L-shaped ambush corridor along Grid Square Juliet 7, the main supply route that Alpha Company used for every patrol into the northern villages. The killing zone was textbook, high ground on both flanks, a natural bottleneck at the valley entrance, limited escape routes. Whoever was planning this knew exactly what they were doing. On the second night, Maya intercepted something that made her skin crawl. A longer transmission, nearly 8 seconds, that her decryption software partially cracked. The message was fragmentary, but 3 words came through clear in Pashto: American convoy and tomorrow. Tomorrow was when Alpha Company had their scheduled patrol. At 200 hours, Maya burst into the Tactical Operations Center with her complete analysis. Lieutenant Harris was there, along with Captain Brennan from Intelligence. Both looked exhausted, surrounded by reports and coffee cups. "Lieutenant, I need 3 minutes," Maya said, spreading her printed materials across the desk. "I've been tracking coordinated enemy communications for 2 days. They're setting up an ambush." Harris rubbed his eyes. "Chen, it's 2 in the morning. Please, sir, just look at this." She pointed to her frequency analysis charts, the triangulated positions, the timeline of transmissions. 5 enemy elements, all positioned along Highway Silver in Grid Square Juliet 7. They're using sophisticated encryption and frequency hopping. This isn't militia. This is trained fighters. Captain Brennan leaned forward, studying her charts with slightly more interest. "You triangulated these positions yourself?" "Yes, sir. Using signal strength analysis and directional data from our antenna array. The margin of error is less than 50 meters. And you decrypted their communications?" "Partially. They're using a rotating cipher, but I caught fragments. They specifically mentioned an American convoy and tomorrow's date." Harris sighed heavily. "Chen, We get threat reports every single day. If we canceled every patrol based on intercepted chatter, we'd never leave the wire. This isn't just chatter, sir. Look at the positioning. Look at the timing intervals. This is a coordinated operation. Brennan studied her face for a long moment, then looked back at the charts. It's interesting analysis, Sergeant. I'll pass it to the battalion S2, but Alpha Company's mission is priority. We need that route secured for the supply convoy next week. Sir, I'm recommending we change the route or delay the patrol until. Noted, Harris cut her off, not unkindly. Your recommendation is noted, but the decision isn't yours to make. We have intelligence assets beyond signals intercepts, drones, informants, satellite coverage. If there was a credible threat, we'd know about it. Maya felt frustration burning in her chest. Sir, I am a credible source. This is what I'm trained to do. And we appreciate your diligence, Brennan said. But we can't adjust operations based on partial intercepts and speculation. You've done good work documenting this. We'll keep it in mind. They were dismissing her again. Maya gathered her papers, hands shaking slightly. What if I'm right? Harris's expression softened. Then we'll deal with it. Alpha Company has experienced operators. Captain Reeves has done this patrol 50 times. They'll be fine. She wanted to scream, to make them understand, but she was just a staff sergeant, just the comms specialist, just the girl who sat in a tent and listened to radios. Maya walked back to her station as dawn began breaking over the mountains. She filed her report officially, attaching every piece of evidence she'd gathered. She sent it up the chain of command, knowing it would probably disappear into the bureaucratic void. Then she did the only thing she could do. She kept listening. The ghost frequencies continued throughout the day. She tracked 2 more transmissions, both confirming her worst fears. The enemy was finalizing positions, making last-minute adjustments, preparing for something big. At 1800 hours, she intercepted a brief transmission that she managed to partially decrypt. 4 words in Pashto made her hands go numb. Allah willing, tomorrow they die. Maya immediately called Lieutenant Harris. He was in a meeting. She tried Captain Brennan, out on patrol. She even attempted to reach Major Castellano, the battalion executive officer. Unavailable. She left urgent messages with everyone, marking them priority. No one called back. That night Maya couldn't sleep at all. She sat in her tent, headphones on, listening to the desert whisper its deadly secrets. The enemy was out there, moving into position under cover of darkness. She could hear them coordinating, their transmissions growing more frequent as 0 hour approached. At 300 hours, she cracked another partial encryption. This one contained grid coordinates, and they matched grid square Juliet 7 exactly. The ambush site. She printed everything, highlighted the critical sections, and ran to the Tactical Operations Center. The duty officer, a young lieutenant she didn't know, barely looked up from his computer. "Can I help you, Sergeant?" "I need to get this to the battalion commander immediately. It's urgent intelligence about tomorrow's patrol." He glanced at the papers. "I'll make sure it gets passed up the chain." "Sir, this needs to go now, tonight before." "Sergeant, I said I'll handle it." His tone was final, dismissive. Maya stood there, report in hand, watching him set it aside on a stack of other papers. The stack that probably wouldn't be reviewed until after morning formation, after Alpha Company had already rolled out. She walked back to her tent, the weight of knowledge crushing her. She knew what was coming, could see it unfolding like a nightmare in slow motion, and no one would listen. Outside, the base slept peacefully, unaware that 20 soldiers would roll into hell in just a few hours. Maya sat at her console, pulled up Alpha Company's planned route on her screen, and stared at the red pins marking enemy positions. An L-shaped ambush, a kill zone designed to maximize casualties. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Sometimes doing your duty means being ready for when others aren't. She opened a fresh log file and began documenting everything in real time. Every transmission, every frequency, every scrap of intelligence she could gather. When the moment came, and she knew with horrible certainty it would come, she would be ready. Even if she was the only one who was, dawn broke cold and clear over Fob Sentinel. Maya had been awake for 36 hours straight, sustained by coffee and dread. At 6:15 hours, Alpha Company assembled in the motor pool. She watched through her tent opening as Captain Reeves conducted his pre-mission brief, his voice confident, relaxed. 20 soldiers, 4 up-armored Humvees, routine security patrol. They'd done this dozens of times before. None of them knew what was waiting. Maya had tried one last time. At 5:30, she'd personally delivered her intelligence summary to Captain Reeves himself. He'd listened politely, even thanked her for her diligence, but his eyes had told the truth. He thought she was overreacting. A nervous, re-echelon soldier seeing ghosts in radio static. "We'll keep our eyes open, Chen," he'd said, clapping her shoulder. "But we can't let the enemy scare us off our own roads." Now she sat at her console, watching the convoy's icons crawl across her digital map. 4 blue dots moving north on Highway Silver, heading straight toward the red pins she'd marked. Heading toward Grid Square Juliet 7. "Alpha 6, this is Sentinel Comms, radio check," Maya transmitted, keeping her voice professional despite the anxiety clawing at her chest. "Sentinel Comms, Alpha 6, loud and clear," Reeves responded. "Beautiful morning for a drive." Maya's fingers hovered over her keyboard. The enemy frequencies were silent now. Radio discipline. They were waiting, watching, finger on the trigger. She could feel it. "Alpha 6, request you exercise extreme caution approaching Grid Juliet 7. I'm still tracking anomalous." "Copy that, Sentinel. We're alert. Alpha 6 out." She monitored their progress, 10 kilometers from the valley, 9, 8. At 6:47 hours, she detected a single brief transmission on one of the enemy frequencies. 2 words in Pashto, "They come." Her heart hammered. "Alpha 6, Sentinel Comms advise you have." The explosion cut her off. The shockwave traveled through the radio before the sound did, a deafening crump that made her rip the headphones off. On her screen, one of the blue dots stopped moving. "IED, IED, contact right," Sergeant Morrison's voice screamed through the speakers. "Vehicle 2 is hit, Vehicle 2 is hit." Then the world exploded into chaos. Automatic weapons fire crackled through the transmission. RPGs whooshed overhead. Men shouting, screaming. The distinctive crack of AK-47s mixing with the deeper thump of American M4s returning fire. "Taking fire from both flanks. We're in a kill zone." "Vehicle 4 disabled. We can't move." "Reeves is hit, Captain's hit." Maya's training kicked in, overriding her horror. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, opening multiple communication channels simultaneously. "All stations, this is Sentinel Comms, troops in contact. Grid Juliet 742, I repeat, troops in contact." She pulled up the close air support frequency. "Raptor 6, Sentinel Comms, immediate CAS requested. Friendly forces under heavy fire, multiple casualties." "Sentinel Comms, Raptor 6, roger. Apache spinning up now. ETA 12 minutes. 12 minutes, an eternity in combat." "Chen," Morrison's voice desperate, afraid. "We need fire support now, they're everywhere." She could hear it through his transmission. The volume of fire was overwhelming. This wasn't a harassment attack. This was a planned annihilation. 50, maybe 60 enemy fighters perfectly positioned on the high ground, pouring fire into the trapped convoy. "Morrison, switch to backup frequency. Your primary is breaking up." She could hear the damage in his transmission. Shrapnel must have hit their communications equipment. Static, more static, the sound of an explosion. Alpha 6, do you copy? Alpha 6, nothing. Maya felt ice in her veins. She grabbed the emergency equipment locker key, her hands surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Inside were older backup radios, Vietnam-era ANPRC sets that ran on different frequencies, harder to jam, nearly indestructible. She powered one up, adjusted to Alpha Company's backup frequency. Alpha Element, this is Sentinel Comms on backup channel, how copy? A crackle, then Morrison's voice, clearer now but ragged with stress. Chen, thank God we're pinned down hard. Reeves is unconscious, sucking chest wound. Corporal Jenkins is KIA, 4 more wounded. We're surrounded on 3 sides and they just keep coming. Through his transmission she could hear the battle, the relentless hammer of machine guns, the shouts of men fighting for their lives, the screams of the wounded. Morrison, I need you to listen to me carefully. Air support is 12 minutes out. Quick reaction force is being scrambled. I need casualty count and defensive positions. 4 urgent surgical, 2 priority, 1 routine. We've consolidated in a defensive circle using the vehicles as cover, but we're running low on ammo. Chen, we can't hold for 12 minutes. Maya pulled up her intelligence data. The enemy positions she'd mapped were exactly where the fire was coming from. She knew their locations better than they probably knew themselves. A terrible, brilliant idea formed. Morrison, hold 1. She switched to her monitoring headset, scanning the enemy frequencies. There, they were coordinating openly now, confident in their victory. She understood every word. They were planning to flank from the northwest, collapse Alpha's perimeter, finish them at close range. She could stop that. Morrison, listen carefully. Enemy squad moving to flank your position from northwest, approximately 25 meters from your perimeter. 8 to 10 fighters. They'll hit you in less than 2 minutes. How do you, Chen, how do you know that? Because I can hear them, Sergeant. I'm listening to their communications. I know exactly where they are and what they're planning. Do you trust me? A pause, gunfire, an explosion, then, yeah, I trust you. Good. Shift your left flank security now. Put your best marksman covering northwest approach, 45-degree angle from your vehicle 3. Contact northwest, someone shouted through Morrison's radio. Multiple hostiles flanking. Engaging, the sharp crack of precision rifle fire. Got 2, 3 down. They're falling back. Morrison's voice came back, breathless, amazed. Chen, how the hell did you know? Maya's screen showed enemy transmissions lighting up, confused, angry. They were realizing something was wrong. Someone was listening. I've got eyes you don't have, Morrison. Now listen, they're going to try your east side next. I need you to. For the next 8 minutes, Maya became the guardian angel Alpha Company never knew they needed. She intercepted enemy communications, translated them in real time, warned of attacks seconds before they materialized. She was inside the enemy's decision cycle, turning their own coordination against them. RPG team setting up on your south side, behind the boulder at your 4 o'clock. Machine gun repositioning to enfilade your position, northwest ridge. Commander ordering ceasefire, they're regrouping. Each warning saved lives. Each intercepted transmission bought precious seconds. At 6:58 hours, she heard something that made her blood run cold. The enemy commander, frustrated by his losses, was calling for their mortar team. They were going to rain indirect fire on Alpha's position, eliminate their cover, finish them with overwhelming firepower. Maya switched to the Apache frequency. Raptor 6, priority targets, enemy mortar position, relaying coordinates now. She transmitted the grid coordinates she'd pulled from the enemy's own communications. Raptor 6 copies. We have visual 2 minutes out, cleared hot. Maya looked at her screen. Alpha Company's blue dots, stationary, surrounded. The red enemy positions she'd marked closing in. The mortar team preparing to fire. Cleared hot. Engage immediately. 2 minutes later, the sky screamed as Hellfire missiles turned the mountainside into a hellscape. The enemy mortar position ceased to exist. But Alpha Company was still trapped, still surrounded, still dying. And Maya had just revealed that someone was listening to every word the enemy said. The ghost frequencies went silent. The enemy had adapted. And now she was blind. The silence was worse than the chatter. For 3 minutes, Maya heard nothing on the enemy frequencies. They'd gone dark, switched protocols, abandoned their radios. Her advantage, the one thing keeping Alpha Company alive, had evaporated. "Chen, they're massing for another push," Morrison transmitted, his voice hoarse. "We're down to 3 magazines per man. Where are they?" She stared at her screen, willing the frequencies to light up. Nothing. The enemy commander was smart, experienced. He knew someone was intercepting his communications. Now he was coordinating the old-fashioned way, runners, hand signals, pre-planned positions. Maya forced herself to think. The enemy hadn't retreated. She could still hear the sporadic gunfire, the probing attacks. They were still out there, still committed to overrunning Alpha's position, which meant they still needed to communicate somehow. Her eyes fell on the spectrum analyzer. There, a spike on a completely different band, not military frequency, not encrypted, a civilian walkie-talkie frequency, the kind local shopkeepers used. They'd switched to commercial radios. Maya's fingers flew across her equipment, returning her receivers. There, voices in Pashto, clearer now, less professional. They thought they were safe on this frequency. "Tell Gulam to bring his men from the East Ridge. Wait for the signal, then all together. The mortars are destroyed. We do this with rifles now." She was back in. "Morrison, they're coming from 3 directions simultaneously. East Ridge, South Valley, and Northwest approach. Coordinated assault in approximately 4 minutes. They're going to try to overwhelm you all at once." "Jesus, okay. We'll redistribute our guys, but Chen, we're really low on ammo. We can't hold off another major push." Maya switched to the TOC frequency. "Sentinel TOC, this is comms. What's the ETA on Quick Reaction Force?" Lieutenant Harris's voice came back tight with stress. "QRF is rolling now, but they're 25 minutes out. The route is." 25 minutes. Morrison, did you copy that?" "Yeah." A pause, heavy breathing, the sound of someone reloading. "We'll be dead in 25 minutes. No, that wasn't acceptable." Maya pulled up every available asset on her screen. The Apache were already on station, but running low on ammunition after their initial strikes. There was a Reaper drone overhead, but it was unarmed, reconnaissance only. The nearest artillery unit was out of range. She was running out of options and time. Then she heard it on the enemy frequency, a transmission that made her sit up straight. "Have the Americans requested their backup forces?" "Yes, they're coming from the south." "Hamid, take your men to the ambush point we discussed." They were going to ambush the QRF. Maya's mind raced. The Quick Reaction Force was racing to save Alpha Company, but they were driving straight into a second trap. If QRF got hit, both American forces would be pinned down, separated, dying. She needed to warn them, redirect them, but she also needed to keep monitoring for Alpha Company. She couldn't do both alone. "Sentinel TOC, Lieutenant Harris, I need you to listen very carefully." Maya's voice was steady, authoritative. "The enemy is planning to ambush QRF on the main approach route. I'm intercepting their communications. They have forces positioned along grid Kilo 218. Chen, how reliable is this intel?" "Sir, I'm listening to them right now. They're discussing the ambush in real time. QRF needs to take the alternate route through the Wadi, approach from the northwest instead." A pause. She could almost hear Harris weighing his options. Trust the comms specialist who'd been right about everything, or stick to the planned route. Harris, please, I'm begging you, reroute them now. Stand by, the longest 30 seconds of Maya's life. Then, QRF is adjusting route. Chen, you're now primary intelligence source for this operation. Anything you hear, you relay immediately. Roger that, sir. She switched back to Morrison. Help is coming, different route safer. You need to hold for 20 minutes more. 20 minutes? He laughed, a sound without humor. Sure, why not? Hey, Chen. Yeah. If we don't make it, tell my wife I. You're going to tell her yourself, Sergeant. Now get your head in the game. Enemy assault in 2 minutes. East Ridge hits first, then the others. Concentrate fire on the east, make them think that's where you're strongest. She listened to both frequencies now, enemy coordination on the commercial band, Alpha Company's desperate defense on military frequency. She became a translator between two worlds, turning the enemy's words into American survival. Squad leader says they're ready, waiting for the whistle. Morrison, they're coming now, East Ridge. Contact east. Machine gunner moving position, trying to flank south. Morrison, shift fire south. Machine gun behind the rock formation. Got him. Maya's eyes burned from staring at screens. Her throat was raw from continuous transmissions. She'd been talking non-stop for 30 minutes, her voice the only thing connecting Alpha Company to survival. On the enemy frequency, she heard frustration growing. They were taking unexpected casualties. Their coordinated attacks were being disrupted. Some fighters were suggesting withdrawal. But their commander, a man they called Khalid, refused. He'd committed too many resources, lost too many men. This was personal now. He ordered them to fix bayonets, prepare for a final assault. They were going to charge Alpha Company's position directly, overwhelm them through sheer numbers and violence. Maya's hand trembled as she keyed the mic. Morrison, they're preparing for a final push. Everything they have, they're going to charge your position. When? She listened to Khalid rallying his fighters, invoking Allah, promising paradise. 2 minutes, maybe less. Chen, we've got maybe 30 rounds per man left. We can't stop a full charge. Maya looked at her screen. The Apache were critically low on ammunition. QRF was still 15 minutes out. There was nothing else. No cavalry coming over the hill, no miracle reinforcements. Just her voice and her wits. Morrison, listen to me. You don't need to stop them all. You need to break their will. When they charge, I'll tell you exactly where their commander is. You kill him, they'll falter. How will you know where? Because he won't be able to shut up. Men like him, they lead from the front when they're trying to inspire. He'll be shouting orders. I'll hear him. I'll find him. You just be ready with your best shot. She switched frequencies, her heart hammering. This was it. Everything came down to the next 60 seconds. On the enemy frequency, Khalid was giving his final speech. Maya listened, tracking his voice, estimating position based on signal strength and the background noise in his transmission. He was northwest of Alpha's position, approximately 40 meters out, behind a cluster of rocks. Morrison, northwest side, 40 meters behind the large boulder formation. That's where their commander is. When they charge, he'll probably move forward. I'll track him. Roger, I've got our best marksman, Corporal Hayes, watching that sector. Maya heard the battle cry rise from 60 throats. The enemy charged. They're coming all sides, Morrison shouted. Alpha Company's remaining ammunition poured out in a desperate fusillade. Men screaming, weapons firing, the sound of boots on rocks as the enemy closed the distance. Maya pressed her headphones tight, blocking out everything except the enemy frequency. There, Khalid's voice, shouting orders, urging his men forward. Morrison, he's moving, 25 meters northwest, shifting right. Crack, the distinct sound of an M110 sniper rifle. On the enemy frequency, Khalid's voice cut off mid-sentence. Then chaos, confusion. The commander is down, Khalid is dead. Who gives orders now? The enemy charge faltered. Without their leader, without clear command, the assault dissolved into confusion. Some fighters pressed forward, others hesitated, still others began falling back. And in that moment of enemy uncertainty, Maya heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Alpha 6, this is Warhorse 6. We are 2 minutes from your position, hold on. The quick reaction force had arrived. The sound of American armored vehicles was thunder rolling across the valley. Contact rear, contact rear. The enemy transmissions dissolved into panic. Maya listened as their discipline shattered completely. Fighters screaming about American reinforcements, about retreat, about survival. The calculated ambush had become a desperate escape. Warhorse 6, Sentinel comms, Maya transmitted rapidly. You have enemy forces breaking contact, fleeing northeast toward the ridgeline. Approximately 30 to 40 hostiles scattering. Copy that, Sentinel. We have visual engaging now. The Apache that had been circling uselessly, out of ammunition, now served as spotters for the QRF's heavy weapons. The .50 caliber machine guns on the relief force opened up, cutting down fleeing enemy fighters. But Maya wasn't celebrating yet. She kept her headphones pressed tight, listening. The enemy was beaten but not destroyed, and beaten enemies were often the most dangerous. On the commercial frequency, she caught fragments of a new conversation. Different voices, calmer, more organized. Fall back to secondary position. Americans will pursue, we hit them there. Prepare the IEDs along the return route. Her blood went cold. They were planning another ambush. The enemy had prepositioned backup forces and explosives along the routes back to FOB Sentinel. They knew the Americans would have to return the same way they came, loaded with wounded, moving slowly. Warhorse 6, this is Sentinel comms, urgent, Maya transmitted. Enemy is discussing secondary ambush positions along your return route. They have IEDs prepared. I'm hearing grid coordinates Kilo 326 and Kilo 331. Warhorse 6's commander, a major named Vickers, responded immediately. Sentinel comms, good copy. Can you confirm those positions? Maya listened harder, her Pashto translation racing to keep up with the rapid-fire enemy planning. Confirmed, Warhorse. They're also mentioning. Standby. They have a machine gun team setting up at Kilo 328 to cover the IED kill zones. They're expecting you to take Highway Silver back to base. Roger that, we'll take the alternate Wadi route. Chen, right? Yes, sir. You just saved our asses twice in one day. Keep those enemy intercepts coming. Maya allowed herself a thin smile. They knew her name now. They were listening. For the next 20 minutes, she became the most valuable asset in the entire operation. Every enemy transmission flowed through her, translated, analyzed, and relayed in real time. She guided the QRF away from 3 separate IED positions, warned them about an enemy rocket team setting up an ambush, and helped the Apache identify enemy rally points. The enemy, realizing their communications were completely compromised, tried everything. They switched frequencies again, she found them. They used code words, she broke the pattern. They tried staying silent, but battlefield coordination required communication, and the moment they transmitted, Maya was there, listening, translating, warning. She was inside their decision cycle now, anticipating their moves before they made them. At 8:47 hours, the combined force, Alpha Company survivors and QRF, began their movement back to FOB Sentinel. Captain Reeves was unconscious but stable, loaded in a Humvee with the other wounded. Corporal Jenkins's body was treated with dignity, wrapped and secured. Maya monitored their entire route home. She heard the enemy commander, a man called Tariq who'd taken over after Khalid's death, trying to organize one final attack. His fighters were scattered, demoralized, but he was determined. The Americans are moving through Checkpoint Phoenix. Mahmoud, take your RPG team to the overpass. One last strike for Khalid for our brothers. Maya's exhausted mind processed the information instantly. They were positioning an RPG team to hit the convoy from an overpass near the base perimeter, a last-ditch attack that could still inflict casualties. Warhorse 6, enemy RPG team moving to the overpass at Checkpoint Phoenix, approximately 4 to 6 fighters. They're planning to hit you as you pass underneath. Major Vickers didn't hesitate. Raptor 6, you still have eyes on that position. Raptor 6 confirms visual on the overpass. 4 hostiles, RPG signature confirmed. Light them up. The Apache's 30 cannon spoke once. The overpass fell silent. On the enemy frequency, Tariq's voice was defeated, exhausted. Fall back. Everyone fall back. It's over. Maya listened as the enemy melted away into the mountains, carrying their wounded, abandoning their dead. The ambush that should have annihilated an American patrol had instead become a catastrophic defeat for them. All because one person had been listening. At 9:23 hours, the convoy rolled through Fob Sentinel's main gate. Maya watched from her tent entrance as the wounded were rushed to the aid station, as exhausted soldiers stumbled from their vehicles, as the base erupted in controlled chaos. She'd been awake for 43 hours straight. Her voice was nearly gone. Her hands trembled from adrenaline crash. But every single soldier who'd rolled out that morning had come home, some wounded, one dead, but the rest alive. Her radio crackled. Sentinel comms, this is Warhorse 6. Go ahead, Warhorse. When this is over, I'm buying you a drink. Hell, I'm buying you a whole damn bar. You're the reason we're not planning 18 funerals right now. Before Maya could respond, another voice cut in. Morrison. Chen, this is Alpha 2. I don't know how you did what you did today, but thank you. You saved our lives, all of us. Then another voice, and another. Soldiers she'd never met thanking her, praising her, recognizing her. Lieutenant Harris appeared at her tent entrance looking shell-shocked. Chen, I owe you an apology. I should have listened. Should have trusted your analysis if I had. People might not have died, Maya said quietly, thinking of Corporal Jenkins. But we can't change that now, sir. We can only do better next time. Harris nodded, something like respect in his eyes. The old man wants to see you, battalion commander. He wants a full debrief on your intelligence methods. Maya stood, her legs unsteady. Sir, I need to stay on the radios. The enemy is still out there, still coordinating. We've got other operators covering it now. You've done enough for one day. That's an order, Sergeant. As she walked toward the TOC, soldiers stopped what they were doing. Some nodded. Some called out thanks. One hard-faced infantry sergeant actually saluted her, an unusual gesture between enlisted ranks but one of respect. The battalion commander, Colonel Hendricks, listened to her debrief with intense focus. She explained her methodology, her frequency tracking, her linguistic analysis. She showed him the patterns she'd identified, the enemy communication networks she'd mapped. When she finished, Hendricks leaned back in his chair. Sergeant Chen, in my 23 years in the Army, I've never seen anything quite like what you pulled off today. You turned enemy intelligence into a weapon more effective than any missile we've got. I was just doing my job, sir. No, he said firmly. You went far beyond your job. You saved American lives through skill, dedication, and courage. That's not just doing your job, that's being exceptional at it. He stood. I'm recommending you for the Bronze Star with Valor device, and effective immediately. You're attached to our intelligence section as Senior Signals Analyst. Your insights are too valuable to waste on routine radio watch. Maya should have felt elated. This was recognition she'd craved for years. Instead, she felt hollow. Corporal Jenkins was still dead. Captain Reeves might never fully recover. 4 soldiers had life-changing injuries. All because no one had listened to her warnings 2 days ago. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. This didn't have to happen. I identified that ambush 48 hours before it occurred. I reported it up the chain. I warned everyone who would listen. Her voice cracked. Jenkins died because people thought I was just the comms girl who didn't know what she was talking about. Hendrix's expression hardened, but not with anger, with understanding. You're right, and that failure is on us, on the command structure that didn't take your intelligence seriously. I promise you, Sergeant, that will never happen again, not on my watch. He extended his hand. Your voice matters now, Chen. Make sure we hear it. Maya shook his hand, exhausted, grieving, but something else too. Validated. Maya had exactly 4 hours of sleep before the enemy struck back. At 2:30 hours, her emergency pager vibrated violently against her cot. She jolted awake, muscle memory snapping her to full alertness. The message was terse. COMMS, TOC immediately. She sprinted across the compound in the cold desert night, still pulling on her uniform jacket. The Tactical Operations Center was chaos. Lieutenant Harris met her at the door, his face grim. We've got a problem, big one. He pulled her to the communications station, where 3 specialists were frantically working the equipment. Every screen showed the same thing, cascading signal interference across multiple frequencies. Jamming, Maya said immediately, recognizing the signature. Sophisticated jamming. They're flooding our primary frequencies with white noise. It started 15 minutes ago, Harris explained. We've lost contact with 2 reconnaissance patrols in sector. They're out there blind and we can't talk to them. Maya slid into her chair, fingers already dancing across keyboards. The enemy had learned from yesterday's disaster. If they couldn't communicate without the Americans listening, they'd make sure the Americans couldn't communicate at all. She cycled through frequencies, searching for clear channels. The jamming was professional grade, covering military bands with overlapping interference patterns. Someone had invested serious resources into this equipment. Can you break through it? Colonel Hendrix had appeared behind her, still buttoning his uniform. Not on our primary systems, sir. They know exactly which frequencies we use, but she pulled up a spectrum analysis. They can't jam everything. They don't have enough transmitters. There are gaps. Her mind raced through options. The old ANPRC radios operated on different frequencies. The satellite communications system used different protocols, and there were civilian bands they could commandeer in an emergency. I can route around it, but I need authorization to use non-standard frequencies. FCC regulations. To hell with FCC regulations, Hendrix said. This is a combat emergency. Use whatever you need. Maya's fingers flew. She began rerouting communications through a patchwork of alternate channels, satellite uplinks, high-frequency bands, even appropriating local cellular tower frequencies. It was a digital Frankenstein's monster of a network, but it worked. Alpha 3, this is Sentinel comms on alternate frequency, how copy? Static then, Sentinel that you Chen, we thought we'd lost comms entirely, what happened? Enemy jamming, I'm routing you through alternate channels. Be advised signals discipline is critical, these frequencies aren't encrypted. She brought the reconnaissance patrols back online one by one, explaining the workaround, getting them connected. It was working. Then the main communications array exploded. Not literally exploded, but every piece of equipment in the primary rack began sparking, smoking, dying. The enemy had escalated from jamming to something worse, a directed energy attack, possibly a high-powered microwave weapon. Fire, get fire extinguishers, someone shouted. Maya grabbed the suppression system, foam spraying across burning circuits, but the damage was catastrophic. The main array was completely fried. Backup systems were failing. She was losing the patchwork network she just built. Chen, talk to me, Hendricks demanded. They're cooking our equipment remotely, sir. Directed energy weapon, probably mounted on a vehicle. They're systematically destroying our communications infrastructure. And it was working. Within minutes, FOB Sentinel was almost completely cut off from its patrols, from higher command, from air support coordination. They were being blinded and deafened. Maya's mind raced. She needed an antenna, something the enemy weapon hadn't targeted yet because it was old, forgotten, outside the modern communications infrastructure. Her eyes landed on the ancient satellite dish outside, a relic from the previous unit, decommissioned years ago, literally held together with duct tape and hope. I have an idea, but it's insane, she said. Right now I'll take insane, Hendricks replied. Maya grabbed a coil of cable and a toolkit. I need 3 minutes and someone to cover me. Cover you? Chen, what are you? But she was already running outside. The old satellite dish was mounted on a platform near the perimeter wall, completely exposed. If the enemy was watching, and they probably were, this position was vulnerable. But it was also their only chance. Maya climbed the platform, her burned palms from yesterday screaming in protest. Behind her, 2 guards took position, scanning the darkness beyond the wire. She worked fast, stripping cable, making connections that would make any communications technician weep. The dish hadn't been powered in 2 years. The control systems were corroded, but the basic hardware was still intact. Come on, she muttered, twisting wires together, bypassing safety systems, jury-rigging connections that violated every technical manual ever written. A bullet cracked past her head. Sniper, get down, one of the guards shouted, returning fire into the darkness. Maya didn't get down. She had 30 seconds of work left, maybe less. Another bullet sparked off the metal dish inches from her hand. Chen, abort, get to cover. She made the final connection, praying to every deity she could remember. The dish hummed to life, its motors groaning as it oriented skyward. A third bullet hit the platform railing. The guard fired a long burst from his M249, suppressing the sniper. Maya slid down the ladder, cable in hand, and sprinted back to the TOC as bullets chewed up the ground behind her. She dove through the door, rolled, came up running toward her station. She plugged the cable into her backup receiver, held her breath, and keyed the mic. Alpha 3, this is Sentinel Comms radio check. Nothing static then. Sentinel Comms Alpha 3, I read you loud and clear. Where the hell have you been? Relief flooded through her. Long story, maintain this frequency. I'm bringing everyone back online. For the next 30 minutes, Maya rebuilt their entire communications network from scratch using an antenna that shouldn't work, frequencies that weren't authorized, and equipment that was literally smoking from damage. But it worked. Somehow, impossibly, it worked. Then her monitoring system caught something that made her blood freeze. On the enemy frequencies, the ones she'd been tracking, there was new chatter, excited, urgent. They were discussing a second American patrol, one she didn't know about, a special operations team that had gone dark during the communications blackout. They'd found them, and they were moving to attack. Sir, we have a bigger problem, Maya said, her voice tight. There's a team out there we've lost track of. Special operations, I think. The enemy knows where they are. Hendricks pulled up the operations board. Damn it. Shadow 2, a 4-man reconnaissance element. They went dark when the jamming started. We assumed they were just observing radio silence. They're not silent anymore. The enemy is talking about them. Grid coordinates. Maya translated rapidly. November 463. They're planning to hit them in the next 10 minutes. Can we contact Shadow 2? Warn them. Maya tried every frequency she had. Nothing. The special operations team was either truly dark or their equipment was destroyed. Negative contact, sir, but I can hear the enemy. I know exactly what they're planning. She listened to the attack coordination. 12 fighters moving into position. They were going to surround the American team's position, wait for dawn, then attack with overwhelming force. I can guide a response team to them, Maya said. I know where both forces are. I can navigate our guys around the enemy, get them into position to ambush the ambushers. You're talking about using enemy communications to conduct our own operation, Hendricks said slowly. Yes, sir. They're telling me everything. Troop positions, timing, tactics. I can give our quick reaction force complete battlefield awareness. Hendricks looked at her, exhausted, burned, running on fumes and determination. Then he picked up the radio. Warhorse 6, Sentinel 6, we're spinning up a rescue operation. Your primary intelligence source will be Sergeant Chen. You follow her directions exactly. She's going to talk you through enemy positions in real time. Copy that, Sentinel. We trust Chen. Maya pulled up her digital map, marking enemy positions as she intercepted them. 12 red dots surrounding 4 blue dots that might not even know they were compromised. This was it. The communications battle had become a chess match, and she held the enemy's playbook. Warhorse 6, this is your guardian angel, Maya transmitted, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. I have eyes you don't have. Are you ready to trust me? We're ready, Chen. Get us there. Quick reaction force rolled out at 3:45 hours, 6 vehicles, 24 soldiers, driving into darkness guided only by Maya's voice. Warhorse 6, proceed northeast on Route Crimson for 2 kilometers, then halt, Maya transmitted, her eyes locked on the enemy intercepts scrolling across her screen. Enemy has observation posts watching the main roads. We're going off-road. Copy, Chen, you're steering this ship. She was operating on pure adrenaline now, 47 hours without real sleep, hands wrapped in gauze from her burns, voice hoarse from continuous transmission. But 4 Americans were out there, surrounded, unaware that death was creeping toward them. She couldn't fail them. On the enemy frequency, the attack commander, a man called Rashid, was coordinating his fighters with methodical precision. Maya listened to every word, translating their movements into salvation for Shadow 2. Positions confirmed, we have them surrounded. Wait for first light, then we close in. Remember, we want prisoners if possible, intelligence value. Warhorse 6, enemy is holding position until dawn. That gives us 45 minutes. Take the Wadi route at your 3 o'clock position. It'll give you cover from observation. Major Vickers didn't question, didn't hesitate. Copy, taking Wadi route. Maya's screen showed both forces converging. The QRF approaching from the west, the enemy fighters in a loose circle around Shadow 2's position. She was threading a needle, guiding American forces through gaps in the enemy perimeter that existed only in the intercepted transmissions. Warhorse 6, slow to tactical speed. Enemy sentry position approximately 300 meters ahead, your 11 o'clock. Single fighter with radio. We have visual, 1 hostile confirmed. He's reporting in every 15 minutes. His next check-in is in 12 minutes. You need to neutralize him silently and before that check-in, or the whole enemy element will be alerted. She listened to the QRF's subdued movements. Through Morrison's open mic, she heard the whisper of equipment, the careful footsteps of soldiers moving into position. 7 minutes passed. Then Morrison's voice, barely audible, sentry neutralized. On the enemy frequency, silence, no alarm. The sentry's radio remained quiet. Good work, Warhorse. Continue northeast, but here's where it gets tricky. You're about to move between 2 enemy positions. Machine gun team at your 10 o'clock, RPG team at your 2 o'clock. Gap between them is approximately 50 meters wide. 50 meters. Chen, these vehicles aren't exactly quiet. I know, but the enemy commander just ordered both teams to reposition closer to Shadow 2's location. They're moving now. You've got a 3-minute window while they're in transition. Go now, fast and quiet as you can. She held her breath, listening to both frequencies. The QRF's engines revving carefully. The enemy fighters discussing their repositioning, distracted, focused on their prey ahead. "We're through," Vickers reported. Maya exhaled. "Okay, you're inside their perimeter now. Shadow 2 is approximately 800 meters northeast of your position. But Warhorse, you can't just roll up to them. They don't know you're coming. They'll think you're enemy and engage." "So how do we do this?" Maya thought fast. Shadow 2 was operating under communication silence. They wouldn't be monitoring standard frequencies, but special operations teams always maintained emergency protocols. "I'm going to broadcast on their emergency frequency. One transmission only, minimal duration. I'll tell them help is coming and to watch for your signal. But that transmission will also alert the enemy that someone's on the battlefield. They'll know their surprise is compromised." "Do it," Hendricks cut in. "Save our people." Maya switched to the Special Operations emergency frequency. Her hand hovered over the transmit button. One message. It had to be perfect, concise, clear, believable. She keyed the mic. Shadow 2, this is Sentinel Comms. Friendlies approaching your position from southwest. Warhorse QRF is 3 minutes out. Enemy force surrounding you, 12 hostiles, they don't know we're coming. Acknowledge with one click if you copy." Silence. Had they heard? Were they even alive? Then a single click of a radio key. On the enemy frequency, chaos erupted. "Someone on our frequency. The Americans know we're here. Attack now before reinforcements arrive. Warhorse, enemy is initiating assault immediately. You've got 2 minutes before they hit Shadow 2's position." The QRF vehicles accelerated, stealth abandoned for speed. Maya's screen showed the tactical situation collapsing into chaos. The enemy was rushing Shadow 2's position from multiple directions. The QRF was racing to intervene, and she was the only one who could see it all. "Enemy machine gun team moving to your north. They'll have fields of fire on Shadow 2 in 60 seconds. Raptor 6, do you have eyes on?" Vickers called to the Apache helicopters orbiting overhead. "Negative, too dark, too much terrain. We can't identify targets." Maya listened to the enemy frequency. They were calling out positions, coordinating their assault. She could pinpoint every single fighter. "Raptor 6, I can give you targets," Maya said. "I'm hearing their communications. I know exactly where each enemy element is." "Sentinel Comms, Raptor 6, we can't engage without positive visual identification. Rules of engagement." "Raptor 6, this is Sentinel 6, Hendricks interrupted, his voice hard as iron. "Sergeant Chen is your eyes. Her coordinates are cleared hot. Engage on her marking." A pause, then, "Roger Sentinel, Chen, talk us onto targets." This was it. Everything she'd trained for, everything she'd fought for, compressed into the next 8 minutes. Maya became a weapon. "Raptor 6, target 1. Machine gun position, grid November 467, 3 hostiles, they're setting up now." The Apache's chain gun roared. The machine gun position ceased to exist. "Warhorse 6, enemy squad flanking from your east, 5 fighters, moving through the rocks at your 2 o'clock. Morrison's voice, engaging east. "Shadow 2, 2 hostiles approaching your position from north, approximately 20 meters, they're trying to flank you." The sharp crack of suppressed rifles. Shadow 2 was fighting back. Maya's voice became a continuous stream, translating enemy movements into American firepower. Her burned hands screamed as she worked the equipment. Her throat was raw, her vision blurred from exhaustion. But she didn't stop. "Raptor 6, RPG team, grid November 469, they're targeting Warhorse. Engage. Target destroyed. Warhorse, 3 hostiles breaking contact, running northeast, They're trying to escape. We've got them. For 8 continuous minutes, Maya maintained her transmission. No breaks, no pauses, just her voice, steady and calm, conducting a symphony of controlled violence. The enemy commander Rashid was screaming into his radio now, his ambush shattered, his fighters dying or fleeing. Fall back, everyone fall back, we're compromised. Warhorse 6, enemy is breaking contact. Commander ordering full retreat northeast. Let them run, Vickers said grimly. Shadow 2, what's your status? Shadow 2 is secure, no casualties. Warhorse, we owe you a beer. Don't thank us. Thank the guardian angel who brought us here. Maya slumped in her chair, the adrenaline finally draining away. The main communications antenna sparked behind her, dying completely. Smoke filled the TOC. Someone was shouting about fire suppression. She keyed the mic one last time, her voice barely a whisper. All stations, this is Sentinel Comms. Operation complete. Enemy force neutralized. All American personnel accounted for. Returning to base. Chen out. The radio died. The jury-rigged antenna finally gave up, sparks cascading across the equipment rack. Maya tried to stand, couldn't. Her legs wouldn't support her weight. Lieutenant Harris caught her before she hit the floor. Medic, get a medic in here. I'm okay, Maya mumbled. Just need to monitor the frequencies. Enemy might. Chen, the battle's over. You won. Let us take it from here. She wanted to argue, but darkness was closing in from the edges of her vision. She'd been running on empty for so long that her body simply shut down. Her last conscious thought was wondering if Shadow 2 had really made it out safe. Then nothing but blissful, dreamless black. When she woke in the medical tent 6 hours later, Captain Reeves was sitting beside her cot again. His chest was heavily bandaged, his face pale, but he was smiling. Welcome back, Lifeline, he said softly. The call sign registered slowly through her exhausted brain. Lifeline. Not comms girl, not Chen, Lifeline. Shadow 2, she croaked. Safe, all of them, because of you. He held up a radio. They want to thank you personally. She took the handset with trembling, bandaged hands. Sentinel Comms, this is Shadow 2 Actual. We heard the recording of your transmissions. You guided forces through a hostile perimeter in total darkness using nothing but intercepted enemy communications. That's the most impressive thing I've seen in 15 years of special operations. You saved 8 American lives last night, ours and theirs. Thank you doesn't begin to cover it. Maya's eyes filled with tears. She was too exhausted to stop. Just doing my job, she whispered. No, Sergeant, you did something extraordinary. See you back at base. The radio went silent. Maya closed her eyes, Reeves's hand on her shoulder, and finally let herself rest. The battle was over. And for the first time in her military career, she knew, truly knew, that she'd earned her place. 3 days later, Maya stood in the center of FOB Sentinel's parade ground, her hands still wrapped in fresh bandages, her body still carrying the exhaustion of 72 hours that had changed everything. Alpha Company stood in formation before her. Behind them, the Quick Reaction Force. Shadow 2's 4 operators stood at attention on the left flank, nearly 100 soldiers all facing her. Colonel Hendricks stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silent compound. Attention to orders. The formation snapped rigid. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to Staff Sergeant Maya Chen, United States Army Signal Corps, for exceptionally meritorious achievement in ground operations against hostile forces. Hendricks read from the official citation, but his eyes never left Maya's face. During a 72-hour period of sustained combat operations, Sergeant Chen demonstrated extraordinary expertise in signals intelligence, communications management, and tactical coordination that directly resulted in the preservation of American lives. Maya stood at attention, trying to process the words. Bronze Star with Valor device. The citation detailed everything: the ambush she'd predicted, the real-time intelligence she'd provided, the communications network she'd built from smoking wreckage, the rescue operation she'd guided through enemy territory. But the words felt distant, abstract. What she remembered was Morrison's desperate voice, the sound of Corporal Jenkins dying over the radio, the weight of knowing and not being heard. Hendricks pinned the medal to her uniform, the Bronze Star catching the harsh Afghan sunlight. "Well done, Sergeant." He stepped back and saluted. Maya returned it, her throat tight. Then something unexpected happened. Captain Reeves, still recovering from his chest wound, limped forward. His arm was in a sling, his movements careful, but his eyes were clear and determined. "Colonel, permission to address the formation." "Granted." Reeves turned to face his company. "3 days ago I led my men into an ambush that Sergeant Chen had warned us about, that she'd documented, that she'd reported through proper channels." His voice was rough with emotion. "I didn't listen. I thought I knew better, and because of my arrogance, Corporal David Jenkins is dead." The formation remained silent, but Maya saw soldiers shifting, uncomfortable with their captain's public confession. "Jenkins died because I failed to trust the expertise of a soldier who was doing her job brilliantly." Reeves looked directly at Maya. "But what happened after that ambush? What Sergeant Chen did for the next 72 hours? That's the kind of courage and competence that defines what we should all aspire to be." He turned back to his company. "Some of you called her just the comms girl. Some of you dismissed her because she wasn't infantry, wasn't kicking doors, wasn't carrying a rifle into firefights." His voice hardened. "But when we were dying in that valley, when we were surrounded and out of ammunition, and certain we wouldn't see another sunrise, it was her voice that kept us alive. Her intelligence that guided air strikes. Her intercepts that warned us of attacks before they happened. Her skill that brought the QRF safely through enemy territory to save us." He faced Maya again and slowly, painfully, rendered a salute. "From this moment forward in Alpha Company, her call sign is Lifeline, because that's what she is. That's what she's always been. And anyone who forgets that will answer to me." The entire formation, 100 soldiers, snapped to attention and saluted in unison. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. She returned the salute, overwhelmed. When the formation was dismissed, soldiers lined up, not to congratulate her, though many did, but to apologize, to thank her, to shake her bandaged hand and tell her their stories. Morrison was first. "My daughter's 3rd birthday is next month," he said quietly. "Because of you I'll be there. Thank you doesn't cover it, but thank you, Chen. Thank you, Lifeline." One by one they came. The mechanic who'd made jokes about radio queens. The supply sergeant who dismissed her intelligence reports. The infantry lieutenant who'd called her assessments overcautious. All of them humbled, all of them changed. Shadow 2's team leader, a grizzled Special Forces master sergeant named Collins, shook her hand with surprising gentleness. 15 years doing this job, I've worked with the best intelligence analysts in the military. You're better than all of them. You've got instincts that can't be taught and skills that can't be faked. If you ever want to work special operations support, you call me." He handed her a card with a phone number. Nothing else, just a number. "I'm good where I am," Maya said softly, "but thank you." Lieutenant Harris approached last, looking like he'd aged a decade in 3 days. "Chen, Maya, I don't know how to apologize for not listening to your warnings. Jenkins's blood is on my hands as much as anyone's." "Sir, we all carry that," Maya said. "The question is what we do with it, how we make sure it never happens again." "I've recommended a complete overhaul of our intelligence protocols," Harris said. "Your analytical methods are going to be taught to every signals intelligence operator in theater. Your intercept techniques are being written into doctrine, and I've requested that you lead the training program." Maya blinked. "Sir, I'm just a staff sergeant." You're the most effective intelligence operator this battalion has ever seen. Rank is just a number. Competence is what matters. Will you do it?" She thought about all the other comms girls out there, sitting in tents, monitoring radios, having their expertise dismissed because they didn't fit someone's idea of what a warrior looked like. "Yes, sir, I'll do it." That evening, Maya sat alone in her tent, the bronze star on her desk, her damaged equipment finally replaced with new systems. The radio hummed with routine traffic, patrols checking in, status reports, the mundane rhythm of military operations. But it sounded different now. Because now, when she transmitted, people listened. Her father called on the satellite phone an hour later. He'd heard through military channels what had happened. Maya told him the story, all of it. The warnings ignored. The battle, the rescue, the recognition. "You know what I'm proudest of," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not the medal, not the heroics. I'm proud that when they didn't listen, you kept doing your job anyway. You didn't give up. You didn't stop being excellent just because others couldn't see it. That's real courage, Maya. That's real strength." "I was just." "Don't say you were just doing your job. You did your job extraordinarily well, even when it would have been easier to stop trying. That's the difference between good soldiers and great ones." After they hung up, Maya returned to her console. She pulled up her monitoring systems, scanning frequencies, building intelligence pictures, doing what she did best. A new patrol was heading out in the morning. She was already tracking potential threats, analyzing patterns, staying 3 steps ahead of the enemy. Because that's who she was. Not just the comms girl. Not even the comms specialist. She was Lifeline. The guardian angel, watching over soldiers who walked into danger. The voice in the darkness that guided them home. The translator who turned enemy words into American survival. And she would never stop listening. Outside, the Afghan night settled over Fob Sentinel. In the mountains beyond the wire, enemies plotted and planned. But Maya Chen was listening to every word, ready to turn their secrets into salvation. Her radio crackled with a new transmission. "Sentinel comms, this is Alpha 6, beginning evening patrol, request radio check." Maya smiled and keyed her mic. "Alpha 6, this is Lifeline. I read you loud and clear. I've got your back out there. Stay safe." "Copy that, Lifeline. Good to know you're watching over us." She settled into her chair, headphones snug, screens glowing, ready for whatever the night would bring. They'd called her just the comms girl. Until her voice turned the tide of the battlefield. Now they called her something else. Something she'd earned through skill, courage, and an unwavering commitment to bringing every soldier home. They called her Lifeline. And that made all the difference. The end.